Hi, my name is Boardman. I'm testing for Level 2 certification in stable management. This is the office in my barn, Ogilvy Stables. Here we have listed our emergency exit route. It has all of the exit doors listed, along with fire hydrants throughout the building and the fire alarm. Over here we have our security alarm that gets set every night. We have security that patrols the property throughout the night. The fire alarm is also here. We have a list. Every month we go through a safety device inspection. So all the fire extinguishers, all of the lights, all of the heat sensors, everything gets checked at least once a month. All of the electrical, everything, all of it is listed, and this is done every month to keep record. So this is the barn itself. There's 27 stalls. This is the wash stall, and as we go down, you'll see that there are blanket bags on everybody's stall. This is how we help keep the barn clean so that there's nothing laying out. We also rake the aisle 2 to 3 times a day to keep away any buildup of dirt and hay that would fall into the aisle. All the horses have hooks for their halters and lead ropes to go on. And then as we come down, so this is our feed room. All of our feed is kept in here. This door is closed at all times. This is one of our tack rooms. Everything is organized and labeled. All of the horses' saddles and pads are organized. All of their bridles are hung up and they're neatly put away after they're being cleaned every time they're used. On the other side, we have another tack room. Our grain cart lives in here for easy access every time it's time to feed, and all of the staff keeps their tack in here. This is the sink. After everyone is done riding, their bridles hang here, and they clean their equipment with saddle soap. We also have our hoses here to give the horses water 3 times a day. We're going to talk about grooming. The first brush is a curry comb. It goes in circles on the horse's body. This brings all the dirt to the surface, and it also promotes blood circulation. The next brush is a hard brush. It has rough bristles. You brush with the direction of the hair, and this brushes away all of the hair and dirt that's brought up to the surface by the curry comb. The next brush is a soft brush. You go with the hair as well, and this shines the coat and is a good finishing touch, and is also able to be used on the horse's face. Next, we have to pick out the horse's feet. In order to do that, you have to stand facing the horse's backside next to the horse. You slide your hand down the horse's leg. You keep your feet away from underneath of the horse and pick the dirt out to clean their hoofs. Lastly is the mane and tail brush. We use this just to brush any tangles or anything out of the mane and the tail. So now we're going to talk about common ailments that horses get in the barn. The first one that we're going to talk about is thrush. Thrush is a bacterial or fungal infection in the collateral sulcus of the frog. It's usually caused by horses being kept in wet conditions that promote bacteria and fungus. In order to treat thrush, the thrush grows here in the collateral sulcuses of the frog, and we treat thrush with copper tox. The copper tox is placed into both of the collateral sulcus of the horse, and that kills the bacteria and the fungus. That we're going to discuss is saddle sores. Saddle sores are sores that occur along the horse's back where the saddle goes. Saddle sores are caused by poor grooming techniques and improper saddle fit. To prevent saddle sores, we use proper grooming techniques to make sure that the dirt is removed from the horse's back before the saddle is put on, and we also make sure that we use pads, saddle pads, and have proper saddle fit. Treatment of saddle sores. We start by cleaning the sore and keeping it dry, and then putting an ointment over it until it heals. We also do not saddle the horse until it is completely healed. The next element that we're going to talk about is cuts. Horses can come in from the field with cuts. They can cut themselves on fencing, they can roll on rocks and cut themselves, among many other things. The best we can do to prevent cuts is to maintain proper pasture management, keeping fences fixed, and removal of anything that they could possibly hurt themselves on, and proper stall management, making sure there's no loose nails or anything that they can rub up against and hurt themselves. Treatment of cuts. First, we clean the wound, and if there's any heat or swelling, cold hose, ice pack to decrease inflammation. Dry it, and then either put a liquid bandage over the wound or some sort of ointment until it heals. Lastly, we're going to talk about hoof abscesses. Horses get hoof abscesses by stepping on rocks or something hard. This causes an inflammation and infection underneath the sole on the horse's foot. In order to prevent abscesses, it's important to talk to your farrier if your horse has soft soles, and they can discuss different options, including hoof supplements to strengthen the hoof, topical solutions such as Durasol or pads. Treatment of a hoof abscess. So before the abscess pops, it's important to soak the hoof in warm water and Epsom salt. That draws the infection down to the sole. And when the abscess does pop, you don't want to soak it in any water. You want to keep it clean and dry to keep any bacteria out of it. It's also important to keep it covered so that there's no debris or anything that gets into the foot. So in order to do this process, we create a bandage on the horse's foot. We start by using a drawing salve on the horse's sole. This helps draw all of the bacteria and pus that's in the abscess. This draws all of it out of the foot. So that's placed over where the abscess has popped. After that is put onto the sole, it's important to cover it so that the horse doesn't get any debris or bacteria in the sole. In order to do this, we commonly use diapers. They fit well over the horse's foot and are shaped. Dreamer. After the diaper is placed, we put vet wrap over it to hold the diaper in its position. We use safety scissors to cut the extra vet wrap. And then in order to prevent any water or any moisture from getting into the diaper, we use duct tape to create a shield over the bottom of the horse's foot. So this is placed. And then to make sure that stays on tightly, just one more layer of vet wrap. Once this is done and the horse's foot is put down, it's important to take your scissors and make sure that you cut along the top here so that it's not too tight up where his veins and arteries go down to his foot so it doesn't cut off any circulation. Okay, so when discussing conformation in horses, the first thing to look at is their overall body conformation. To start with, we look at the law of thirds. Good proportion should be from the point of shoulder to the point of the withers, point of the withers to the point of the croup, and from the point of the croup to the point of the buttocks. All three of those should be the same length. Another important concept is that the horse is square. This means that from the point of the shoulders to the point of the hip should also be the same length as from the point of the shoulders to the ground. It's also important to have a balanced horse. So from the point of the withers to the girth should be the same length as from the point of the girth down to the ground. Horses that have faults in this area include horses that have too long of legs, and that can cause overreaching and foraging. It's also bad for a horse to have too long of a back because that uncoordinates their movements. As we zoom in with conformation, we look at the horse's shoulders and the horse's hips. So with the shoulders, the slope should be a long slope. This is the shock absorber for the horse. So a straighter shoulder means a shorter, choppier stride. The length from the withers to the point of the shoulder should be the same length as the neck. And the angle of the shoulder should equal the angle of the pastern. In the back, in the hindquarters, your point of hip to point of buttocks to the point of stifle should equal an equilateral triangle. And the wider the angles are between these 3 points is a shorter stride. Even closer, we look at the horse's leg conformation. From the front, it's important to notice whether the horse is balanced and even. You don't want a horse that is base narrow, which is a narrow chest and their legs are too close underneath of them, or base wide, which is too wide of a chest and their legs are too far apart. You want their legs to be straight, and this tool is called a plumb line. This is really valuable when looking at a horse's leg conformation. So we place it at the point of the hip, or the point of the shoulder from the front, and we let it fall down to the ground. And this helps us see how straight the horse's leg really is. So if this falls straight to the ground and the horse's leg follows straight with it, it'll show how the horse is built. So this horse looks to be built a little base narrow. Next, when we look from the side, we look, just stop it. As we go down the horse's legs, we want straight knees. Horses can be bench kneed, which is where their cannon bone is offset from the knee. And then as we go further down to the hooves, horses can be toed out or duck-footed. And when a horse is toed out or duck-footed, they do what's called winging. So instead of their legs going straight forward during movement, they actually swing inward, and this can cause interference depending on the severity of it, and that can cause long-term damage for the horse. They can also be toed in or pigeon-toed, and this creates a sort of paddling movement, and it looks like the horse is swimming. This is still a conformational fault, but it's better to have a horse that paddles than wings because they don't have that interference when they paddle and they don't cause injuries to themselves. When looking at the leg from the side, you can see this horse's legs are straight. Some conformational faults are horses that are camped out, which means their legs are too far forward, they don't stand straight underneath themselves, or they can be camped under in the front end, which is where their legs are too far back underneath of themselves. They're not balanced carrying their weight. As you go down to the knees, there's horses that can be called over at the knee. So from here down, from the cannon bone down, this will actually be behind this center line here. Or there is back at the knee, and that is when the cannon bone is actually ahead of where the knee is, and that is worse than being over at the knee, because when they're back at the knee and they land, the concussive forces cause damage because they pop their knees. It's important to look at the angle of the pastern in relation to the angle of the hoof. You don't want to have upright pasterns, but you don't want pasterns that are too sloping. Their pastern angle should equal the hoof angle. A good hoof angle for the front hoof is 45 to 50 degrees, so their pastern angle should also equal 45 to 50 degrees. This angle should equal this angle. When looking at the hind legs, we do the same thing. We start at the back, and we look again. Is the horse base narrow? Are their legs too close together? Base wide, too far apart? Or are they cow-hocked? Cow-hocked is when, at the hocks, the horse's legs turn inward. And then from the side, we look at the leg conformation from here as well. The horse can be camped out in the back, which is again the leg too far back. Horse can be camped under, which is the leg too far forward. The actual angle of the leg could be what's called post-legged, and that is when this is just straight, there's no angulation at the hock. Or they can be what's called sickle hock, which is where the angle from the hock down to the cannon bone is too extreme. So now we're going to talk about our grain. We get a custom mix from Belmont Mills in Ohio. It's a mix of rolled oats, cracked corn, and pellets. We keep it stored here in our grain silo to keep it dry and dust-free. All of the horses that get fed this grain also get a trace mineral supplement added to their feed to complete their nutritional needs. We also feed a senior feed. It's really soft and easy to chew for our older horses that require softer grain. It's also dissolvable in water. We've got older ponies that are 35 and have difficulty chewing, so that's the best thing for them. It's also a complete feed, so they don't need the trace minerals when they're fed the senior feed. Here we have our grain chart. This lists everything that each horse gets, what supplements they get in the morning, along with who gets lunch and who does not get lunch. Our scoopers are 3-pound scoops, so all of our feeding is based off of that. We also have extra supplement here, MSM, which is for our boarders, and then all of our jumping horses get Cosequin for their joints. So this is the rest of our feed room. There is a fire alarm and a heat sensor in this room. Over here we have a medications chart for any changes that happen, and there's a calendar so that it can keep record of when medications are started and stopped. There's a daily barn routine if any employees have any questions of what needs to happen throughout the day. We keep our bagged feed here on pallets so that they're safe and dry from anything in the elements. Here we have labeled containers. We have our barn cat's food. We have a supplement that our boarders prefer, and then another supplement down there that's for our boarders. Over here we have alfalfa pellets that are labeled for which horse they go to. There's extra salt blocks because all of our horses get salt blocks in their stalls. We have an extra trash can, and then on top of that there are extra feed pans in case anybody needs to eat on the ground. We keep our hay pellets in here for our horses that require them because they can't chew hay very well, like the older ponies that can't chew very well. And then over here we have our sharps container. We have supplements that belong to our boarders. We have electrolytes if anybody needs them. There's a mane and tail supplement here for a research project. We have Tri-Hist for any allergies, Careflex for joint health, and then we have applesauce on top for any horses that have trouble taking their supplements or any medications. So we store our hay in a hay loft that is above all the horses' stalls. It's all stored cut side up against the walls where it's safe from the elements and it stays dry. When we feed it, it's dropped through a hole in the floor that drops down into their hay rack. This keeps the hay from being on the ground and it keeps it organized and clean. We feed 2 different types of hay. We feed a first cut and a second cut hay. Our first cut hay is a little stemmier and a little lower in a nutritional value. It's more of a filler. And then we have our second cut hay, which is softer, it's easier to chew, so it's fed to a lot of our senior horses that have problems chewing. It's also got a higher nutritional value. All of our hay is kept mold and dust free, and we store all of it up here cut side up so that there's no moisture or anything that stays in the hay that prevents barn fires. because the mold heats and creates combustion. In the event of a barn fire, there are fire extinguishers on the far end of the hayloft, here in the middle of the hayloft, and at the other end of the hayloft. And then there's also fire extinguishers throughout the aisleway. All of the stalls have heat sensors and smoke detectors between them. So this is our stalls. In our stalls, all of our horses have water buckets. We use water buckets and not automatic waters because by using the water buckets we can keep track of how much the horse drinks during the day. They have feed pans in the corner. The grain comes through a square opening that is just wide enough for the feed to come in and for them to not put their heads out through. We keep clean sawdust in the corner under their feed pan. That way we don't have to run back and forth as much every day when we clean their stalls. Our horses have a habit of pulling their hay out of their hay racks that are in the other corner. So when we clean our stalls, it's important to take all of the clean, usable hay that is still here and to put it up and put it back into the hay rack. You have to make sure that you're looking and going through the hay to make sure that it is clean hay because we can't put dirty hay that's been trampled on or the bathroom has been used on it. That has to be thrown out. Also, there's poop in here. To clean up the poop, we use our pitchforks and we sift through and we try to save as much of the clean sawdust as possible because we're cost efficient and we don't waste here. Once the stall is clean and all of the dirty bedding is removed, we just take fresh sawdust from the corner and rebed the stall. And we have it to where there is at least a 1-inch layer of sawdust on top of rubber mats so that it's nice and soft for our horses and they're comfortable.
Here at my stables, we use sawdust. Sawdust is soft and makes a nice bed for our horses. It's easy to use, it's easy to clean, it's absorbent, and it's inexpensive for us because we have a local sawmill close by. Other types of bedding include pellets. Pellets are really, really soft too. Once they're soaked and spread out, it turns into a very fluffy bedding. It's also easy to clean, it's very absorbent, but it's a lot more expensive because it comes in bags that you have to purchase from the store. Another form of bedding is paper. Now, paper is very eco-friendly, it's recycled, it's soft. The problem with bedding made of paper is that it's very difficult to sift through. It doesn't break apart very easy, so oftentimes when you use paper, you kind of have to just strip the stall every day. Another form of bedding is straw. Straw is really good for foals and horses that have heaves because it's really low in dust. It's also very warm, so it's good for mothers and babies that are just born. It's pretty cheap and it's easy to come by. The problem is, though, that it's very difficult to pick and sift through and it's not very absorbent. So again, like the paper, it's kind of one of those things that we have to strip completely if we use it every day. So all of our horses have blankets and bags on their stalls. In the wintertime, before the temperatures drop really low, all of the horses that get clipped wear sheets. Once the temperature drops below 30 degrees consistently, all of our horses get blanketed until the temperatures rise again. In the summertime, there's one horse whose owner personally bought him a fly sheet, so he wears a fly sheet in the summertime, but the rest of our horses have fly masks that go on in the summertime to protect their faces from the flies. We also keep coolers in our tack room. The coolers are used when the weather requires them, if the horses get too sweaty when it's cold, and it helps them cool down without getting a chill.
So these are shipping boots. These are used when horses are traveling on the trailer. They're very cushiony and soft, and they provide a protective layer for the horse's lower legs so that they don't, when they kick or anything, it protects their legs in the trailer. They're put on like so. When you put on shipping boots, you want to make sure that you have the boots on tight enough to where they're snug and won't fall off or move around at all, but you don't want them too tight to where they'll cut off any circulation to the horse's limbs. Okay, so the next wrap we're going to talk about are standing wraps. Standing wraps are used to help prevent swelling and to support a horse's legs if they stay in overnight and they stock up, which is basically just a swelling of fluid from being stagnant. When you start your standing wrap, you want the inside crease to be facing out towards you, and your wrap goes along the front of the horse's cannon bone. as you begin, you want to make sure that there's no wrinkles or creases anywhere on the wrap, and you want to keep equal tension the whole way through. After that, we put on the non-elastic wrap, starting at the middle of the horse's cannon bone and working your way down. With these wraps, you want to have equal tension the whole way through, but you don't want to pull too tight because these wraps don't stretch as well as polo wraps do. So as you go down, you want to have about 1/4 of an inch left of cotton visible on the bottom side, and then you can begin to work your way back up. And then on the top end, you want to also have 1/4 of an inch of cotton exposed on the top. Make sure there's no wrinkles or creases anywhere. This extra space on the top and the bottom is so that the wrap is not cutting off the horse's circulation to these extremities. A good way to tell if your wrap is secure and the same level of tightness the whole way through is take your finger and you flick up and down, and it should sound the same the whole way through. Sounds good. Lastly, we're going to discuss polo wraps. Polo wraps are used to provide support and protection to the horse's tendons and ligaments along the backside of the cannon bone. Polo wraps are used in riding, and they're most common in horses that engage in high-performance activities such as dressage. When placing your polo wrap, you want to start with the crease facing out towards you and the front of the wrap starting just below the knee. As you start, you pull equal tension across the cannon bone, but you never want to pull tension across the tendons on the backside. You want the wraps tight and secure, but not tight enough to where they cut off any circulation. Polo wraps stretch a little better, so these are a little easier to put on tightly. When you get to the bottom, you go down around the fetlock joint, and you come back up, and you should create a V at the front of the horse's fetlock joint. As you go back up the leg, you cover up the lines from the wrap on the way down, back up to the top, and you want to end covering up where you started. So now we're going to discuss our vaccine and records. Our horses are vaccinated twice a year, in the spring and in the fall. They're vaccinated with a 5-way vaccine that includes rhino, influenza, eastern and western encephalitis, and tetanus. We also vaccinate for rabies in the springtime, and we vaccinate for West Nile virus. Our horses are dewormed every 2 months. The dewormer changes depending on the time of year based on the parasite control schedule. We have a binder that keeps record of all of the horses. Here we have Comet's records. So it starts out with just the general horse information, including his vital signs at rest. Throughout the schedule, we have how many times he's vaccinated, how often dewormed. We have his feed schedule, any changes that occur, any supplements that he's given, his hay amount, how often he's shoed, each time is scheduled and listed, his dentistry, how often his teeth are floated, and then any extra activities that he performs. Another aspect that's really important for stable management is having an organized medicine cabinet. It's important to keep everything separated and in its proper labeled containers. On the bottom we have liniments, scrubs, Epsom salt, and a pan for soaking feet. In the middle we have our first aid kit, wormers, we have vet wrap, there's hydrogen peroxide, alcohol, there is iodine scrub, and eye wash. Up above we have our thermometers, there's Vaseline, diapers, there's wound sprays and covers, there is DMSO and poultice, there is sunscreen, thrush, and different ointments. Above that is all of our gloves and extra supplements, along with our oral pastes, which are bute and banamine. On the top there is cotton wraps, more vet wrap, a heating pad, and saran wrap for sweating legs.